What is going on, 12s? Welcome back to another episode of the Always Compete Seahawks podcast. My name is Sam. Thank you for joining me today. Today will be my part two of the free agency primer video where I will be going through the big boys. We're talking interior offensive linemen, D tackle, and offensive tackle today. Three of the biggest needs, the top three needs that I listed for the team. Got a lot of players to talk about, got a lot of interesting names to talk about. I think it'll be fun to kind of dive in here and get a good look at some of these players, get a good look at what the Seahawks should go after, in my opinion. Now, once this is concluded, we will have a little bit of time from now until free agency, but of course, I will keep up with rumors, draft content, maybe a few fun little videos that I do in between. Let me know if you guys have any video ideas in the comments below because I'm happy to hear suggestions and I'm happy to involve you guys in any way I can. So, with that being said, let's hop right in with my third biggest need on the team, which I listed as offensive tackle. I think tackle is a need for a few reasons. Last year, we kind of saw what they were trying to do when they brought in George Fant, where the idea was, well, you got Fant if Lucas gets hurt, and then or if he doesn't play, and we'll be safe. Well, Fant gets hurt, and in the games that he plays, he's not very good. He's almost certainly going to get cut off the team. But regardless, I think it's underrated the in the ability to solve a lot of this offensive line's problems if you kick Abe Lucas inside and sign a reliable right tackle. It solves a lot of problems. You don't only have to get guard. That's not your only path to success. I think it's going to be interesting to look at here. Hey, what do we got here? Who could we bring in? I looked pretty much exclusively at right tackles, given, the history of, hey, like we need, like Lucas was going to kick in. We're not going to like slide Charles Cross in because he's frankly a pretty good left tackle. So we're okay keeping him out there. We're not going to, Lucas is a much more likely candidate to get kicked in to right guard. Who could we get at right tackle? So I didn't go any big money names. This is not a great right tackle, pure right tackle free agency class. Believe Ronnie Stanley is a free agent as like the top tackle, and he has been a left tackle his entire career, and he's been playing for a long time. I believe since 2014 or 15. I'd be surprised if they kicked him inside. Back to right tackle, kicked him over across the line at this stage in his career. It doesn't really feel very likely. So I picked guys that, exclusively have a lot of experience at right tackle or guys that were just listed as tackles in general, guys that are considered to have flexibility on both ends of the ball. Let's get right into it. My first player that I named is a guy that Seahawks fans might remember. There was a point in time a few years ago where it seemed like he might come to Seattle and it was kind of hyped up a lot. I believe that was the offseason where we got rid of Russ and we were kind of going out and actually making some moves in free agency. And this guy made a couple visits, I believe, to Seattle. I'm going with Trent Brown, the right tackle. Played for a ton of teams, Cincinnati last year. Trent Brown is a very interesting thing. He's ginormous. If I'm correct, he's somewhere around like 6'8", 340 pounds. He is a ginormous player. He's a real people mover in the run game. In the pass game, he's a little slow. He can get beat around the end, but in general, last year was pretty reliable when he was healthy, and that's an important caveat. When he was healthy, he was pretty good. He did sustain a major knee injury about halfway through the year that ended his season, but it wasn't necessarily like a play that like he was just moving outside and his knee gave out. He got folded up on. I remember the play. But Brown is a guy who is a veteran that has been around the game for a long time. And if anything else, he would kind of be George Fant plus one, right? Where we're talking about, a veteran, a guy who's maybe a little bit injury prone, but a steady right tackle who's been around the game, who is maybe not going to stay healthy, but he's a little bit better than George Fant. I will say he's a little bit better than George Fant. Had a good year last year when he was on the field. Like I said, he only played in 3 games. So that really hurts. He tore his patellar tendon. But regardless, I think Trent Brown is an interesting name because he's hurt and because he's a little older. He's 31 years old. I think he would be really cheap. John Schneider has already had him in the building before. Maybe he goes out and says, "Hey, listen, we know you. You're injured. You've been injured. Hell, maybe he can even kick into guard if he wants to. He's a little big for guard. I would worry about his ability to bend. But regardless, I think Trent Brown is an interesting name to watch for a cheap veteran name who, if he's healthy, could put together a legitimately solid year if he has the chance. My next name is a name that's a little bit interesting. Kendall Lamb. Never, I mean, I'd heard the name before, Kendall Lamb, but I never really thought much more of him until I was kind of looking around at free agent offensive linemen, and I was saying, hey, like who could be an option? Who could we go out there and get? He is 32 years old. He's 6'5", 308. And last year, playing for the Miami Dolphins, he signed a 1 year, $2 million contract as like a reserve kind of tackle, swing tackle piece. And he ended up playing very well. 72 grade overall, hit an 83 pass block grade, a 53 run block grade is rough, but 83 pass block grade is 10th in the NFL. He played 512 offensive snaps, only one penalty, and was played 441 snaps at right tackle, 70 snaps at left tackle. And I think a key thing to remember here is that he played this role in a San Francisco, Shanahan, West Coast type of offense that Clint Kubiak is a direct descendant of. And I think that's really interesting to remember. Kendall Lamb, a little older, but clearly showed what he could do. And I think all in all, Lamb is a name to look out for as a guy who's been around the game for a long time. He knows what he's doing. He's coming off of maybe his best career season. He might be looking at a little bit of a payday. All these guys are medium money names that I've listed so far. Tackles do get paid. But regardless, you could sit back here and say, hey, Kendall Lamb in the system that Clint Kubiak runs really succeeded. I think that's something worth noting. I think Kendall Lamb is a name to look out for as a guy that could be a really steady, interesting right tackle pick that would not be expensive. My next pick, Morgan Moses of the New York Jets. Now, Moses last year ended up really kind of, taking a step back for the Jets. The Jets kind of went all in on building a experienced veteran offensive line, an offensive line full of players who had been around a long time, and like they did it with Tyron Smith and John Simpson and all these names that had been around for in the game for a while. You know how just terrible that Jets offensive line was, though. Ultimately, why I listed Morgan Moses is because he's a guy that has been in the NFL for a really long time, and he's played right tackle, started at right tackle for a really long time. I think that experience can't be understated. I think all in all, Moses fits as a player that, once again, we're talking about leaders on the offensive line. This team doesn't really have one right now. Charles Cross isn't really that outspoken, while everyone else is young, and Laken Tomlinson, who was the de facto leader, is gone. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see who leads. Morgan Moses the second he steps in that room would say, hey, you know what? I'm the guy. I'm the guy. Everybody look at me. I'm going to lead this group. Moses may be a little bit washed up, but experience is extremely important. Leadership is important. Moses is the name to watch, in my opinion. This name I had is a maybe for medium money, but mostly because of, not because of like, oh, he's a great player, but he's coming off of like a down season. It's really not even like a mid player who's coming off a career year. I suppose you could call it a down season, but I'm going to list Joe Noteboom from the LA Rams as a name. Now, this is a guy that got a little bit of a payday a while back, but did not play much last year. 220 offensive snaps played last year. I believe he was hurt a vast majority of the season for the Rams. Played 127 snaps at right tackle, 93 snaps at left tackle. Good positional versatility there. I think that's something to be listed. No boom, once again, kind of fits into that West Coast style of offense. What I really like about Note Boom, 70 run blocking grade from PFF. That was top 35 in the NFL for all tackles. 70 is a pretty good grade. The Seahawks really need people movers on the offensive line. Note Boom could be that guy, and he could be gotten at a better price. He's only 29 years old, 6'5, 321. This is a guy who's still young, has had great years in the past, and is coming off a year where he just couldn't stay on the field. But overall, we've seen that he can play well, and we see that he can fit into a run need that the Seahawks really have. I would like Joe Noteboom as an ad for the Seahawks. We're going to move to the two bargain bin names. I'm going to touch on these guys very quickly. Jedrick Wills, offensive tackle. You might remember him. He was a first round pick a little bit ago. I believe he was in that same draft as like, oh my goodness, who was in that draft? I believe that was like the Tristan Wirfs year where there were some really good tackles that went off. I believe it was the COVID year draft. Really good tackles went off, and that Wills had a decent start to his career, but man, he was really, 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 really bad last year for the Cleveland Browns. I liked Wills coming out of Alabama. There is a weird connection to like Alabama offensive linemen that are big time that do not translate in the NFL. I don't know what it is. 6'5, 307. He's 25 years old. Like this guy is young. Pass blocking grade, he was 75th. He wasn't terrible. Run blocking grade at 51. He only played 245 snaps. All at left tackle, but still, we know how much John Schneider loves reclamation projects. Oh, especially first round reclamation projects. There is a clear world where he's like, hey, Jedrick Wills, former first round pick, still young. You know what? I'm gonna throw him a 1 year deal, and we're gonna say, hey, you know what, B bastard, we're gonna kick you to right tackle, or you know what, hey, you can play left guard for us. We're gonna play you anywhere we tell you to because you're just looking for a team. I feel like Wills makes a lot of sense. And another name that I listed as a super bargain bin, I'm gonna try not to mess this name up. Oli Semeka Udo, but I believe they call him Oli Udo. He is a tackle from the New Orleans Saints. Let me see if I can. There he is. Oli Udo. I'm just trying to pull up his profile here. Tackle from the New Orleans Saints last year. Not good. I'm just going to come out and say it. He's 6'5, 320, 27 years old, 35 pass block grade, 70 run block grade, only played 150 snaps. Played most of his snaps at left guard, which is interesting. He's listed as a tackle. He played snaps at left tackle, left guard, right tackle, and at tight end, probably in like heavy sets. Udo is an interesting name. Once again, he kind of feels just like a guy that the Seahawks, because Clint Kubiak has that connection, go out and say, hey, you know what? Here's a 1 year minimum contract, and you're going to come in and you're going to play for us. And maybe you'll come in and play tight end in heavy sets. Who knows? I just had him here because of the Kubiak connection. I wanted to list players that I felt could fit, but also could be realistic given their ties. All in all, that's really all I have for the tackles. I would just keep an eye out because there is a world where if the Seahawks miss out on some of these premier guards that they were really eyeing, they go out and say, hey, you know what? Forget it. We're gonna just look around and we're gonna go get a right tackle instead, and we're gonna kick Abe Lucas in, maybe move Christian Haynes to left guard, or maybe they draft one, and that should hopefully fix a lot of your offensive line problems. That is a definite spot where I could see the Seahawks improving this offseason. I want to go, before I go forward, I wanted to say that I did not really include center because I touched on it a little bit in my Clint Kubiak video. Ultimately, if you guys are wondering who I would really target at center, Drew Dahlman and Ryan Kelly are the two names, especially Drew Dahlman. He really fits what Kubiak wants to run in a zone run scheme. I would really keep an eye on him. He's also from Stanford. We know John Schneider's ties to the Pac-12 and the Pacific Northwest. I think that's a name that makes a lot of sense for the Seahawks. And I would also look at Ryan Kelly just as a veteran name that fits a lot of the needs that could be a little cheaper. Overall, that's really what I have there. Obviously, center is a position to keep an eye on, but I did not list it as I touched on it a bit before. I thought it'd be a bit boring if I went over the same names I've been going over for a long time. So, regardless, we're going to move on to my second top need, and I have defensive tackle listed as a top need. And a lot of people would say, well, Sam, Leonard Williams is coming off a career year. He's in the Pro Bowl. Byron Murphy's a first round pick. Why do we need defensive tackle? Because the defensive line last year was fundamentally flawed in how we needed to run it because of our systematic flaws. Mike McDonald and the Baltimore Ravens like to use nose tackles. They had Michael Pierce in Baltimore, who is just ginormous. Last year, Jonathan Hankins wasn't good enough as a nose tackle, so we ended up having to play Byron Murphy at nose tackle, and that just didn't work because ultimately Murphy is best fit as a type of player that can play three tech and outspeed and just outmaneuver guards in space. That is really what he's best at. He should not be playing nose tackle. It's really limiting him as a player. And we saw it a lot where he did fine, but it was really limiting what he could do, especially as a former first round pick. I think ultimately a nose tackle is a gigantic need for the Seahawks team to really open up this defensive line and make a lot of things make sense. So I went through and I listed some of the biggest goddamn boys I could find, and we're going to touch on some of them right now. Let's start with DJ Jones in the big money section. I have three big money names here. And DJ Jones is one of them. I love watching DJ Jones. He is just the littlest, roundest dude you could imagine. Played for Denver, I believe, the last 3 years. Signed a big contract at San Francisco. 6 foot, 305 pounds. Little round ball of just strength and muscle. 64 PFF grade, 71 pass rush, 60 run defense. This is not a guy that's going to get a lot of stats. 33 solo tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 15 hurries. Nothing crazy. 17 total pressures. Nothing crazy, but you know what he is going to do? He's going to do the unattractive work in the middle of that defense. Had a really productive year for a Broncos defense that really took off under Vance Joseph. And DJ Jones, I feel like, man, he would help so much. He's projected for 11 million average. That number could go up or down. Maybe a lot of teams don't see nose tackle, 30-year-old nose tackle as a big need. Maybe his money comes down and maybe John Schneider swoops in. Regardless, I think DJ Jones would be such a great fit for what we need. We need someone just to plop over the center and just go straight forward and open up Byron Murphy so he can do what he's best at. That is really a name that I would love. I think he could, outside of guard, getting DJ Jones would be the add of the offseason, in my opinion, because of how important it would be for the defensive line. Excuse me. My second pick, Bobby Brown from the LA Rams. I have him listed as a big money pick. Not necessarily because he's like a game wrecker type player, because he's really not. He's not the type of guy that's gonna, he's not like the next Aaron Donald because he's from the Rams, or he's not anything ridiculous. Had a 63 grade last year from PFF. Uh, 472 snaps. If you look at his grades, 67 run defense grade. That's really why I like him for the Seahawks. No sacks, 26 tackles, 2 hurries, 3 pressures. Why is he listed as a big money player? Because he's 6'4", 324. That's big D tackle. He's only 24 years old, and teams will really pay for a guy who is a former highly regarded prospect that is hitting the draft at 24, coming off of probably the best season of his career on paper. Bobby Brown would really fit well in the middle of this defense as just a gigantic man that can really stop in the run game. That's what he does best. Line him up on first and second down and just have him eat in the middle and let Byron Murphy go to work. This is really a lot about opening up Byron Murphy, because I feel like adding him as a legitimate difference maker next year would be so big for this team. Bobby Brown, only 24, a huge name to watch. And this last name is a name that a lot of people will revere in Seattle. I do. My old Twitter account was at Punistan. I actually changed my Twitter account recently because I my old Twitter account just got way too toxic. But my old Twitter account was at Punistan, and Puna Ford is the third big money player. He had right as it seemed after he left Seattle that his career was heading towards football purgatory, where he was kind of bouncing around on practice squads and just kind of floundering out of the league. He went to Buffalo and never played, and went to he went to, I believe, Denver and never played. Like, it was really looking bad for Puna. We all know 5'11", 3'10". I mean 3'10". 5'11", 310 pounds. Goes to the Chargers last year on a prove it deal and breaks out. 85 grade from PFF, the fifth best grade of any player, of any defensive lineman out of 219 defensive linemen. 71 pass rush grade, 78 run defense grade, 3 sacks, uh, 13 hurries, 23 total pressures, 21 stops, played 604 total snaps. This guy was a machine for the Chargers last year. The John Schneider connection is obvious. The Harbaugh connection from Mike McDonald to Harbaugh is obvious. Puna could be a guy that might say, hey, I really liked my time in Seattle. But at the same time, he's going to get paid. He's only 29 years old. He has probably 2 to 3 years of prime left in his career. And I think it's going to be interesting to see who's going to pay up for him. I think a lot of teams would be willing to pay a lot of money for Puna Ford, especially after what he did last year. I would keep an eye on him. I think he could be a guy that would get a lot of money, but if he came in, slot him in at nose tackle once again with what he learned in Baltimore and what he learned in LA, and I'm sure that Mike McDonald will translate some of that from that Harbaugh connection. Really interesting to see where Puna Ford will go and perhaps if he will be a Seahawk. Moving on to the medium money category, I have two guys listed here. First guy, I don't really have to talk much about, is Jarran Reed. Had just a really terrific year last year. Did a lot of very good things. He has nose tackle to three tech flexibility, which I think is really important. Very good in the run game, underrated as a pass rusher, and as a real leader on that defensive line, he is also underrated. He seemed kind of like the prevailing voice a lot in that locker room on the defense, where he was kind of getting in guys' faces and getting them going. We remember that Buffalo game where he got in Derek Hall's face after making a big error. And a lot of people saw that as fighting and all that, and it wasn't looking great. But at the same time, they made up instantly in that game. And I think that's just Jarran Reed and the type of leader he is, trying to motivate his boys. I would really like Jarran Reed back. I think he was super important. He will get paid a good amount of money. He'll probably get, somewhere around the 5 to 7 range. He's a bit older, but I'm sure he would love to come back to Seattle if he had the chance. And I would be surprised if he doesn't have the chance, at least, to come back to Seattle. My second pick is Teair Tart, also from the Chargers, formerly of the 49ers. Another kind of big nose tackle type player here. Puna got a lot of time kind of at three tech as well, which was interesting given his size. Once again, Tart is a big fella, 6'2", 304, 27 years old, played 349 snaps last year for LA. 27 years old is very young also, which is why he will probably get a good amount of money. Didn't get a ton of snaps. Like I said, 349 is not like a ridiculous amount, but it's a rotational player. 16 total pressures, 1 sack, 14 stops, 20 tackles. 76 overall grade, 75 pass rush grade, 69 run defense grade. Not really much to say about Teair Tart. Another guy that went to LA and really found it last year. Another guy that's hitting free agency at a relatively young age. Maybe he could be the type of guy to get higher than expected because he's young, kind of like the Cody Parkinson of defensive linemen. We're going to see what Teair Tart gets, but ultimately, I would really like to see him as a target for the Seahawks. I think, once again, just another guy that perfectly fits, plays the run defense well, and is a big enough player to slot in at that nose tackle spot and play right over the center and just get nasty in the middle. Moving on to the bargain bin. I have 4 bargain bin names, all guys that I think are legitimately decent players. And my first guy is Jordan Phillips from Buffalo. Really rough year last year for him, but he's been around a long time. My notes here, I have vet big boy, 6'6", 342 pounds. That is unbelievable. How are you 6'6", 342? That feels like bigger than anyone should be. But you want to talk about a guy that would just be able to essentially get off the ball and just stand there? Like 6'6", 342 is what he should do. He was really rough this year for Buffalo. Would not expect him to be retained. I would ultimately expect him to be a guy that hits the market and would be very cheap. I think Jordan Phillips, as a veteran guy that's just gigantic, try to get him on a bounce back year. We saw Tier Tart and Puna Ford and all these guys go to another team and find it. Jordan Phillips could be that for the Seahawks if he finds the right spot. My next pick is a guy that really kind of caught my eye. I picked Mike Pennell from, I believe he played for the Kansas City Chiefs this year, but he's bounced around a little bit all around the league. I believe he also played for the Cleveland Browns. He is another type of player that is a veteran and is big. And that's what really catches my eye. Now, what makes me think he will be cheap? He is a rotational defensive lineman, played 320 snaps, who's 33 years old. That's not the prime of your career. That's the type of time where you don't get much. Had 3 sacks in 320 snaps, mostly played on run defense, 5 hurries, 8 total pressures, 13 stops. 58 pass rush grade, 70 run defense grade, 65 overall grade. This guy would be like, to me, Jonathan Hankins, but a little better based on what we've seen. Maybe he'll be a little worse given that he's not playing next to like a guy like Chris Jones. Regardless, though, a veteran, 6'4", 330, just a giant big guy that can stand in the middle of that defense, be a leader at 33 years old, and also have experience like, yo, guys, I've won a lot, man. I've been around. Let's go win. Let's go win some games. Let's go win some goddamn games. You know what I mean? And a guy that perfectly fits a run defense specialist, a first and second down type of nose tackle. Really what the Seahawks are looking for. I like him a lot. My next two guys are both similar. Both have NFC West ties. Both are big. And according to PFF, both are coming off of not terrific years. I have Roy Lopez from the Arizona Cardinals, 6'2", 318. Once again, just prototypical nose tackle size. I think that's really important to list. 27 years old is still young. You know, you got 2 or 3 years left. I mean, yeah, like 3 to 4 years left in you of like legitimately high quality prime era football. And did not have a great year for the Cardinals, but regardless, I think a body is enough. And he's big, and he did stand out in a few moments against the Seahawks in the run defense. Maybe just because our O line was really bad, but regardless, I think Roy Lopez is a name to watch. And the second guy that I have, who is a NFC West tie, Greg Gaines, played for Tampa Bay last few years, former Ram. Once again, just another big giant guy coming off a little bit of a down year. Both of these guys, veterans. I really think that the Seahawks need to add a nose tackle. If they don't go and spend big on a DJ Jones or a Puna or a Bobby Brown, I would really like to see a type like Mike Pennell or Roy Lopez that are added that fills a big spot with a giant guy that can just play against the run. That's really all I'm asking for. Please unlock Byron Murphy. That wraps up my D tackle category. And now we are moving on to the last category of the video. We are moving on to guards. We know that this team needs at least one, if not two guards really bad. Like so bad. And let's talk about it. I have a lot of players listed for this. I believe I have 10 players, 3 big money, 4 medium, and 3 bargain bin. Let's get to talking because this video is already running a little long. So let's get to yapping about some guards. Let's start with Trey Smith in big money. Everybody knows this guy from the Chiefs. He's very young. He's expected to make around $20 million this year. This is like if Mike McDonald is the type of coach that just wants the big fish. Trey Smith would be the big fish, filling in a massive hole at right guard. Would just fill so much for this team. Not much needs to be said about Trey Smith. Just a mauler, big guy in the middle that will instantly fill a giant hole in the middle of your offensive line. Mekhi Becton is the second name. He will be making a projected around 10 million. I think we'll probably get more considering his background, his youth, his breakout year this year with Philadelphia. Picked in the first round. Unsuccessful tenure in New York as a right tackle. Philadelphia brings him in a 1 year deal and kicks him into guard. And he has a breakout year next to Lane Johnson and paved the way a lot of times for Saquon Barkley and is a mover on the in the run game, which is what the Seahawks really need. If this guy can stay healthy and get off the ball and move people, he would be a huge ad for the Seahawks. I think he'll get a lot of money because of his youth and a lot and his size and his potential. But overall, a name to watch for the Seahawks. Ultimately, Mekhi Becton, I think, would be an awesome ad. Although, really, I'm not expecting them to add a big money guard. Probably medium money to bargain bin is what we're going to be looking for, at least in free agency until we get to the draft, where we'll see maybe if they want to add something else there. My third name at guard, my third and last name, big money guard pick, Will Freeze from the Indianapolis Colts. 26 years old. He's projected to make about 15 million annually. Let's talk a little bit about Will Freeze, a name that I have not really heard brought up a lot. I believe a former undrafted rookie and a guy that, you know, found his way and had a really successful year for the Colts, playing opposite on the offensive line of Quentin Nelson, had an 86 overall grade, 6'6", 305, 26 years old, 85 run blocking grade, fifth best of any guard in the NFL. This is a dude, man. This is a dude. And he only played 268 snaps. But like his age, what he showed in those snaps, and overall what we know he can do, Freeze a name that I think is going to get paid. Played at a lot of, at right guard, could be a name to watch as just a really good young ad that could fill a hole in this offensive line for 3 to 4 years. Of all the players, Freeze I think could be the most likely Seahawk of the top three guys that I listed. Now, let's go to medium money. This is where I compiled three vets and one guy that might be medium, could be big. We'll talk about it. First pick, Kevin Zeitler. He's been rumored to come to the Seahawks for like 5 years. I feel like just get him in. Just get him in. Like he's come so close. He has the Mike McDonald connection. Just do it. Like just do it. The Lions seemingly found his replacement in Christian Mahogany. I think the Seahawks should just go and get Zeitler. Just get a vet. He won't be expensive. He'll be like a 1 year, $5 million contract. Go and get him and just fill the roster spot. Get a leader and get a steady guard. Please. I think Zeitler makes so much sense, as does this next guy. Brandon Scherf. You know, former top five pick. He's been in the league for 10 years. Got a huge contract with Jacksonville and last year. Really had a good year. In the past few years, he's had a lot of trouble staying on the field. Last year, stayed on the field and ended up producing at a pretty good rate. A primary left guard, like I said. Why I said he will be in medium is because of his age. He is an older player. I believe he's like 30, 33 or 34 years old. I just the guy that's been around a long time. Once again, if we're talking about instant leaders, plug and play instant leaders, this is the guy. Run blocking was really rough, but a 75 pass block grade, overall 65 grade. Like this would be such an upgrade from what we had last year, and he would be so much more steady. I think Scherf is a good name to watch as a 1 year fix it for now, and we'll worry about it in the future. And he will probably be at least average, if not above average, if he stays on the field. Third name for the vets that I picked in medium money, Will Hernandez. I want to talk about people movers. This guy's a people mover, man. He's just big, giant. I really liked him coming out of the draft. I believe out of UTSA. You know, a big time guard. Went to New York and then bounced around a little bit. Last year was in Arizona. You know, 6'2", 330, 69 overall grade. He's 29 years old, 74 pass block grade, 66 run block grade. This guy could be the type guards get paid like a lot of money. This guy could be the type to sneak into like expensive guard because he's still only 29. But overall, I think Will Hernandez would be a really nice ad for someone that's just big, can move people in the run game, and fill a big spot at guard that the Seahawks need to fill. This next guy, I put him in medium money at the time. I think he'll be more big money. Aaron Banks from San Francisco. I listed him because of the Kubiak connection. I was surprised to see that he was going to be a free agent because I feel like he was only picked like not that long ago. But overall, 27 years old, 6'5", 325, 65 overall grade. I think the fact that he's 27 years old is going to lead to him getting paid a good amount of money. I would be surprised if he doesn't. I put him in medium. You could probably slot him in at big money. He'll probably get at least $10 million a year, but I listed him because of the Kubiak connection. Kubiak coach there. While he was there, obviously, that would be a clear tie. So something interesting to watch. Let's go to the bargain bin. There's one name here that I found really interesting that I think is a legitimate name to watch. The other two are more so speculation due to their ties and, like how they fit with what the Seahawks currently have. First name I had was Lucas Patrick from the New Orleans Saints. 6'3, 313, 31 years old. Played for the Saints last year. The obvious tie there being Kubiak. Played 562 snaps, 474 at left guard, 88 at center, and was pretty good during those snaps. 64 overall grade, 60 pass block, 66 run blocking grade. A guy that was pretty solid, played a lot of snaps for the Saints and played well. And once again, the tie between Kubiak is obvious. I think this one makes a ton of sense. Like, just go out and do it. If anything, he's a 1 year stopgap that Kubiak knows fits well in his scheme. I think it just makes a lot of sense to go out and get Lucas Patrick. Has center flexibility if there are any needs there, which is a possibility for next season. Patrick is a name to watch. I would really like him as a bargain bin, like 1 year, four. Just go out and do it, make it simple. Next guy I had was Mark Glowinski. I just wrote Tomlinson 2.0. Reason why I said Mark Glowinski is Tomlinson 2.0, and the reason why I listed him really in general, bad year last year, but in general, Colts offensive linemen are good. He's had good years in the past, and he has a Seattle connection. John Schneider knows him. We know how much John Schneider likes to bring back guys that have played there before. It's just something that he really enjoys, and it's something that is like safe for him to do. Glowinski could be a name to watch as like a super cheap guy that they're going to say, well, he's had good years in the past. Maybe he'll do it, and he'll probably end up not being good. Glowinski is a guy that I definitely would not want, but ultimately is a name that could be realistic given his ties to Seattle already. And the last name I have, Ben Cleveland from the Baltimore Ravens. Another Mike McDonald tie here. Ben Cleveland was a guy picked out of Georgia a few years ago, kind of as a mauling guard. Has started a lot of games for Baltimore in the last few years. If you look at his picture, this guy's like straight up country, like redneck style, 6'6", 370, 26 years old. People mover. 63 run block grade at 6'6", 370. Mike McDonald ties. This one could make a lot of sense. I believe played a lot of snaps specifically at right guard. He actually only played 49 snaps last year, but he has started a lot of games in the past for Baltimore. I think Ben Cleveland would be an interesting pick as a guy with McDonald ties and a guy that's just big, and we need some nasty on the offensive line that was clearly missing. Ben Cleveland could fit that role, especially if the Seahawks just want to go heavy into the power scheme and get mean, which I think is required. So that will wrap up my free agency preview. This video ran a little longer than I would have liked it to, but at the end of the day, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please comment in the comments below how you feel about the players that I picked, any names that I missed, any positions that I missed. Give me some ideas for videos if you have any. I'm always happy to interact with you guys in the comments. After that, if you enjoyed, please like, subscribe. If you enjoyed your day, if you enjoyed the video, I hope you enjoy your day, and peace out.